all you beautiful creatures out there. It's time for another episode of Real True Facts, the Real True Podcast. My name is Dolly Parton.
And I am Leo Cohen.
Not that one.
Not that one, neither of us.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, neither of us.
Yeah, neither of us are the ones you may be familiar with.
Don't get confused. Before we get into our subject today, a little bit of news. We're pleased to announce that we are now part of the PodMoth Media Network. So keep a lookout for them on Instagram at PodMoth. You can see a bunch of interesting shows on there that follow all of our favorite supernatural and paranormal themes. So we're happy to be included in their lineup.
Yes.
Yes, we are. So today we're going to sparkle and shine because we are talking all about our favorite trickster deities, the fair folk or fairies.
Yeah, fairies, fae, pixies. I know there are a lot of names, and I'll be curious to hear more later in the episode about, what the correct nomenclature is, because it's really easy to get confused. And, it's just one more thing that kind of goes back quite a while on the human timeline that doesn't seem to disappear.
Right. Yeah. They've been around in just about every society. They've taken on a lot of different shapes and sizes. I always talk about Peter Pan, Tinkerbell, she's a fairy. So there's a lot of things in pop culture. And so it'll be interesting to see how those images in pop culture line up with what the real true facts are.
Yeah. Once again, we encounter our old friend of media and how the truth is portrayed.
Yeah, we never know. Sometimes they, hit it in bullseye. Sometimes they miss the mark. So we'll talk all about that today. But Leo, I want to ask you: have you ever seen a fairy?
In person, I don't believe so. Thinking about this week's topic, I did, think back a bit, but I'm not sure. It's one of those things where I may have seen something at some point, but I'm not entirely sure. And I did watch some videos, though, and I have to say, some of those have to be real.
Yeah. Are they? I didn't see any of these videos. Are they scary or?
No, the ones that I watched were home videos, just stuff that people recorded on their own, some security camera footage. And, most of them were just kind of caught in the wild, really small flying objects that were not bugs. And there were a couple photos, but the videos really, the moving images tell much more of the tale, I think. Have you ever seen a fairy?
I don't think so. However, growing up, my family was very much into fairies. I think we just had sort of like a natural respect for them. And I always thought lightning bugs or fireflies were fairies. I always thought that, they seemed so beautiful and mystical. And I always thought they were just really pretty creatures. I know a lot of times they're shown as being kind of like fearsome, like they have little sharp teeth and claws and things like that. But I remember being a kid and my mom and me would feed the fairies. We would throw strawberries out into the yard because I guess fairies lived in the yard. They live outside, so we would throw strawberries out into the yard, and we'd also throw like rum out into the yard too, because I guess fairies like to drink.
just splash it into the grass?
We would just splash rum into the grass and just strawberries and throw them out, and then we'd go check in the morning and see if the strawberries had been eaten, and of course they have. So we were like, oh, well, the fairies must have really enjoyed that.
Yeah, that's one thing that does seem pretty consistent. I haven't heard of many house fairies or indoor fairies. It's almost they're almost always equated with the wild or nature or outdoors. But I
don't know what they do. I mean, I know like elves make shoes.
Really?
At night, elves will like make shoes. And they'll leave you gifts and stuff, but I'm not entirely sure what the purpose of fairies are outside of, they play tricks and wear flowers as hats. So,
Yeah, I think it seems like that's a common thread is what, are they good? Are they evil? Are they scary? And as we find out with most topics, and we'll see what happens this week. But from the little bit of research that I did, it seems like people say, oh well, they can be evil and tricksters, but they can also not be. So just like many of our other creatures and topics, they're just like humans. There are good ones and there are bad ones.
yeah. And so, are they tiny humans? Is that what we're
I've
led to
heard,
believe?
I've heard that kind of, and then I think it falls into the, I don't know what it's called, changeling or
Oh yeah,
swapping
yeah, changing.
lore. Like sometimes they're swapped at birth, a real baby for a fairy baby or vice versa or something like that.
Sure.
And I don't know how the biology or the physics of a small person, a human that small, would work. I think I have an idea for the perfect person to answer those questions. I wonder if we have Dr. Seymour this week.
Ah, do we? Do we? Let's check in with the science
Let's
bunker and see if Dr. Seymour is available. Fingers crossed.
hack
Dr.
the
Seymour?
mainframe,
Yeah, I'm
open
hacking the
that up.
mainframe. Where's Dr. Seymour?
Well, hello,
Wow. There
BFG.
Hello.
he is. He's
Welcome back,
here.
Dr. Seymour. We were just talking about fairies and biology came up, and yeah, so that's that's really where you.
We're starting from square one this week. We're not entirely sure. So I guess our question is, from a biological standpoint, how can a fairy exist? Because it looks like we've got a tiny person with wings, and maybe some of them don't have wings. I know some of them ride little animals around. So take it away. How does this work?
Yeah, very interesting. It's one of those things that we could easily deny and say it's just part of the story. But if it's been a part of the story for so long, there's a reason why. And I think if biologically, there's a pretty clear path. It's just one we haven't had to go down very often. There, we talk often in terms of evolution, of the connection between different primates. And humans are most closely connected to the great apes, the orangutan, the gorilla, and the chimpanzee. And over time, that evolution happened. But there is a lot of primates that are much, much smaller that live in trees that can jump and fly, that fly or float around. We think of like flying squirrels, but there's actually a lot of monkeys that have done that in the past and some that still do. So really, we're kind of seeing a parallel evolution of some of the bigger, smarter, stronger primates on the ground evolving into humans, whereas some of the more spry and small primates that would live more in the trees evolving into some other human-like creatures.
Yeah, and you see it too with squirrels. You have flying squirrels and things like that. So maybe instead of like insect wings, maybe we're dealing more of like a gliding kind of thing. And to the naked eye, it looks like flying, but maybe like Buzz Lightyear says, is falling with style.
Exactly, and that's why some of the less stylish falling may be portrayed over times as riding on things. There's once again, depending exactly which species they evolved from and how they change to their environment over time, some may be more elegant gliders than others.
Yeah.
So I hear, I guess, or I've seen a lot of nonsense from armchair experts who aren't, real scientists and learned folks such as yourself say that, oh, well, if a human type person thing were that small, it would die from hypothermia, or its organs would be this and wouldn't work because of that. Just a lot of kind of armchair science that, I don't have the background to dispute. What are your thoughts on that, of the physics of, human that small? Obviously there would be differences, but how would those kind of internal organs work and the plausibility of it all?
Yeah, and that's where you say, like, it's very good where you kind of recognize your limitation there, where a lot of people do not. They overstepped their bounds in terms of what they can. They only have one set of experiences, and if it doesn't match up with that, then tell you what, I'll go straight to the message boards and let you know about it. But I guess the best difference that I could see, and you say, well, a blue whale is a mammal. They produce milk. They have all of the same organs in vastly different sizes and places. But you can even look at their appendages, their arms and their flippers, and there's similarities to humans there more than there are to a lot of other things. So it's all animals, but mammals especially, are incredibly adept at adapting to their environment. So would a tiny human being have a internal body temperature of 98.6? No. But would a tiny human being still be incredibly human-like and have the ability to function and to do all the things they need to stay alive? Of course.
Yeah,
I bet the metabolism is just crazy on those things.
And the whale example really resonates with me. I mean, I can just see if there were a bunch of whales on the internet and saying, oh, well, a little tiny version of us that's the size of, a human wouldn't work. But, here we are, and we're the size of humans.
Exactly.
Humans are the size of humans.
Yeah.
Humans.
I mean, mammals of all shapes and sizes survive in their environment. So they have to be able to adapt. I mean, if we're looking at a fairy and where they're living, obviously they've adapted to live in that area. Just going off of what other species have done, I assume they would do the same thing.
Exactly, yeah. And I mean, there would be climates that would be more friendly to different sizes of mammals. We've seen that, and we've seen that if you go back in history, which animals survived the Ice Age. But to say as a blanket statement that something can or can't exist because it doesn't look like you or smell like you or eat like you is a very selfish and small-minded way to exclude something as likely as the existence of fairies.
Yeah. And we don't want to do that. We don't want to be ignorant. So I think that's a really good place to start. So thank you, Dr. Seymour. Are you going to be joining us later in the show, or you got to get back down to the science bunker?
We're still in the lab. We were talking a couple weeks ago, and like I said, we're not spilling any industry secrets here, but we are getting excited about some breakthroughs that are in the mix, and we're in the heat of it right now. So I think I better be back to make sure that everything's going the way that it needs to.
All right. Well, we don't want to keep you, and we look forward to hearing what you're working on.
Yes, it will be on the cover of journals soon, and hopefully we make mainstream news. But you'll be the first to know.
Well, we certainly appreciate that. All right. Thank you, Dr. Seymour. We'll go ahead and close up the science bunker here. And cool. All right. So why don't we take a quick little break, and we'll be back with our special guest today, talking all about fairies on Real True Facts. Welcome back from a quick break. Our guest today is a folklorist with an emphasis on the fae, or fairies. Her book on how to communicate with fairies is number 8 on the New York Times bestseller list. Please give us a warm welcome, and welcome Dr. Elizabeth Torreseva to the show.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it is our pleasure.
No, the pleasure is mine.
So, yeah, I mean, I have been following your career for the past 5 years, I think, when we spoke.
Wow.
Before the show, you mentioned that it had really only been 5 years. And when I think back on it, it feels so much longer than that.
Yeah. Well, I was in school. I was in school for quite a long time. And so I was doing quite a bit of research and stuff while I was in school. But yeah, 5-year career.
Wow. So you are a folklorist, and your emphasis is on fairies. Can you tell us a little bit what a folklorist actually does?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we are sort of the vessels that we're able to connect the world of this realm and the fairy realm. So it's really, I mean, where to start? So basically, there are different entrances to the fairy realm scattered throughout this planet and this realm of existence as we know it. But really, there aren't that many people that have the stamina and ability to enter into this other realm or are open to it. It's an energy sort of a realm. So there are only a handful, really, that I have ever met of people that have the ability to enter into that realm. So we're really the correspondence between our realm and their realm so that they can learn more about us and then we can learn more about them.
Wow.
Wow. Yeah. So, I mean, first of all, right off the bat, there's an entirely different realm, which is what we've all been curious about. Before we delve any deeper into that, I have to get my head clear. Should we be calling them fairies or fae, or is there a proper nomenclature here, or is anything improper?
Well, I mean, that is an English word, right? So I don't think they really care what we call them. So you can call them whatever you'd like. The word in their language is actually. So that's what, if you'd like to call them in the way that they communicate, you can use that. But it's, fairy is fine. They're not really concerned.
I don't know if my voice can go that high. I'm not trained.
Yeah, I always seem to embarrass myself with native tongues, whenever I go to an Italian restaurant and I try and order a certain pasta or wine. So I'll just have to stick with the English in this case, as long as they don't mind.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So if we're dealing with not a parallel universe, but another realm. So is this happening in front of our eyes? We just can't see it?
Yes, actually. So they are free to move around our realm. So let's think of it this way, right? So we are three-dimensional beings, right? So that means that we can see in 1 dimensions and 2 dimensions and then finally 3 dimensions. So you can only see up to the dimension that you're currently existing in. They live in a different dimension or realm, but there are entrances between the realms. So I guess when they do enter our realm, they can make themselves visible to us they can shapeshift between dimensions. So they can make themselves visible to us if they want to. Usually, if they want to transcend to our dimension, it's sort of difficult to explain. If they want to transcend to our dimension, and not be visible to us, then they actually usually take they take the form of dragonflies usually.
Oh, okay. So that's something that's easier for us to see.
Yes, and if they want to make themselves known in a way that won't be too paralyzing to us, then they'll usually take the form of dragonflies. And then if they feel safe to reveal themselves after that, then they usually do. But human beings were a huge threat to them for a long time. So that's pretty much why they ended up fleeing this dimension anyways, because they were, once human beings started existing in this dimension, in this realm, they were sort of a threat to fairy life. So they fled, and they're very scared to reveal themselves in most situations. So
I would imagine the threat of being kept in a jar with holes poked in the top is pretty scary, I think.
100%.
Yeah.
So that also makes me curious. When you enter their dimension, do you take the form of some other some animal or being that's native to their culture and realm and world, or do you look and feel pretty much the same?
I feel pretty much the same. They actually don't have mirrors the way that we do. They're not quite as vain, but so I don't really know the form that I take while I'm there. Sometimes when I look down at myself, I'm revealed to myself as like a gas, like a gaseous form. But that's sort of when I look down at my own body, but they don't have mirrors. So I couldn't tell you if maybe I have a face that I'm not aware of. I'm not really sure.
Right. I mean, who knows what forms we take on if we're entering a different realm? It could be something very much similar to like astral projecting, where you see your body from above and you look down and it's just it's yourself in another dimension. So it could look like anything. So how does one, because your book is How to Communicate with Fairies, so how does one begin to enter this world, and is it safe to do so?
It is safe, but there's quite a bit of training behind it. You sort of have to be, I guess, brought in. But I am glad that you asked exactly how to communicate, because the language is very different. So the way that I was sort of brought into this world was I met a man while I was hiking, a man that at that time to me was a stranger. And I asked him if he lived somewhere around there, and he said that he was free. And I didn't know what that meant. And so I said, what do you mean? Does it mean that you don't have a home? And he said, I'm actually beyond all of that. I'm free from all of these structures. And I thought that was rather interesting. So we got to talking, and eventually he trusted me enough to tell me about what was going on. And he sensed that I didn't think that was crazy or insane. I didn't judge it. I just said, wow, that seems very interesting. I'm so interested in what that is. And so eventually he took me to this river where there was like a lot of dragonflies. I was like, is this a dragonfly mating ground of sorts? And
Sure.
And he said, actually, those are fairies. And I was like, those are dragonflies. I got you, and
Sure.
And because these creatures are clairsentient, which means that they can feel your energy, and they can sense how your soul is from a feeling and from your energy. They sensed that I would be a great addition to, a correspondence of sorts. And eventually I was, taught the language and brought in with open arms, and it's quite beautiful. It changed my life.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, it sounds like they want to bridge the gap just because of the history between the fairy folk and humans, that perhaps they are a little tentative to reach out to humans again, but are open to the concept.
Yes. I think the hope is that eventually we can get to a point where we won't be trying to cause any harm to one another.
Right.
Wow. So how long have you been able to access their realm now? How long has this been?
It's been about 4.5 years.
Wow, 4.5 years. So have you noticed that it sounds like it has, but made a difference in your life over, I guess, on this side? I mean, has it really impacted you personally?
Yes, absolutely. I'm a happier person, and I think it comes from wanting to give and receive openly. I mean, there are so many restrictions that we have in our worlds that they don't have, and that they don't care about. As I think as you get older as a human being, you look back on things that you really cared about, say 10 years ago, and you go, why was that such a big deal? Pretty much none of the things that we think are a big deal in their realm. So it's a lot. There's a lot more peace there. There's no violence or restrictions or societal pressures. These words don't make sense. They don't process them the same way that we do. There are no societal pressures to be beautiful or to be this or that or better than anybody. These things don't make sense to them. So I think I have felt more free as well. I mean, when I first met Dr. Finkelstein, which literally sounds like a made-up name, when he told me his name, I was like, prove it. He showed me his identification.
Wow.
I was like, I don't believe you. But when he said that he was free, and I now have a full understanding of what that means.
Yeah, you get what that means now. It sounds like a very lofty concept or a made-up concept, but then once you see it and you understand the society and the lessons that they want to teach us, then it's like, oh, okay. It's like you belong to a very special club now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I want to ask, what are some of the first lessons or I guess like maybe things you had trouble with or like communication gaps or something? Like, what was some of the first things that the fairy folk taught you when you first entered into their society?
Well, first, Dr. Michael taught me how to communicate. So there were some things that I knew that I shouldn't do. The fairy folk they're very strong. They don't use that for violence most times. But they're also, because they're evolved so much further than we are. But there are some things, they do have their weaknesses as well. I mean, they are very OCD creatures. So you think, so they're very sensitive to certain like irons or silvers. They're very controlling over certain things. Like I was wearing a ring the first day that we transcended to their realm, and I got in so much trouble.
It was a forbidden metal.
Yes. It was like
you wouldn't have known.
Yeah, I got but it's also like they're very OCD, meaning like one time I brought like a vial of sugar because, well, that's a whole different conversation, but we had to bring our own food, and I had this vial of sugar that we were using for strawberries and whatnot.
Yeah.
And I dropped it, and that they're so OCD. It's sort of like they have to count every single grain of sugar that I dropped, and they are paralyzed with what we sort of think is like an OCD sort of a thing. So it's sort of like in Rain Man, the way that he counted the
toothpicks.
The toothpicks. Yes. Yes. That's exactly how they are.
Wow.
If you drop anything, they become paralyzed. They have to count them.
They gotta count it.
Yeah. So first few days where I made some mistakes, but what are you gonna do, right?
Yeah. You live and learn.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Yeah. It sounds like everything has its place with them. That's really quite interesting. I think I'm still reeling a bit. This is so very interesting. I wonder if we should maybe take a quick break and get right back into it.
Yeah, sounds good. We'll be right back.
We're back from a short break here on Real True Facts this week, talking about fairies with Dr. Elizabeth Torreseva. And I don't know if we went over your. You have a doctorate, correct? We're referring to as doctor. Where did you receive that doctorate?
Well, from the education in my background is folklore with an emphasis on fairies. I received that from the Woodlands University of the Arts in Folklore. So that's where sort of I did all of my education.
Yeah, they have a great online program.
They do. It's actually, I mean, if you can maintain like a B average, you can probably get in there.
Yeah.
Ooh, okay. You have my attention.
I mean, it's expensive, but
sounds like a private arts college, which typically is very expensive. I want to switch gears a little bit because we've been talking a lot about your background, but we always ask about the influence of the media with things like this, because we see a lot of pictures of fairies. We see them represented a lot in movies, TV. They're in art a lot ever since, I'm thinking back to like the Renaissance or even like the Victorian or Edwardian eras. We have tons of paintings of just, beautiful people with wings and just this sort of like enchanted or magical kind of element. And people always talk about, fairies are mischievous and they like to blame, misfortune. Oh, it must be the fairies, or we have to do something to appease the fairies. So with these images, how accurate is it? Are they dead on, or do they look like something completely different?
Well, I guess, they can take on different forms. Like I said, in the actual realm of fairies, they don't quite look like that as much as they look like very bright lights. But here in this realm, when they usually make themselves known as meaning they transcend from the dragonfly shape that a lot of us have seen them in, and into a fairy form or like a tink form. They do. They take on the shape of humans with wings because, they know that human beings like themselves a whole lot. And so when they see other shapes that look like them, they're less likely to attack. Although if they need to get away quickly, hence the wings. They know that human beings, we love things that are smaller. So like we love babies, we love puppies, we love, anything that is small is cute. So they said if we take on this form, again, hopefully they'll be less likely to attack. So it's usually pretty accurate.
So a movie like Peter Pan, for instance, like, that could be spot on based on the way that they've appeared to us.
Yeah, sometimes they the most common occurrence is more of like a like a cherub, a
cherub,
like a small obese baby. That's sort of what most of the time the pretty average form is. Again because of we like things that are small and cute, but a full-grown woman, like in Peter Pan, like in Tinkerbell. Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes it really depends on who they were revealing themselves to. Because if they're revealing themselves to, say, like it's all based on energy. So it's not even really necessarily based on their choosing, but it's more of they will pretty much automatically appear as whatever form will pose the least amount of threat. So if they're revealing themselves in front of a man that maybe he's a little bit misogynistic, let's say, like a little bit, he's like, I think women I can overpower them, and so they're not a threat to me. then yes, they would reveal themselves into the form of, say, like something like Tinkerbell, like a fully grown, attractive woman.
Sure.
Yeah. It's a gross way of saying it, but it's true.
Yeah, well, I mean, energy does play a big part of it. I guess I could explain maybe like, because we talked a lot about angels and demons in previous episodes, and it's very possible that if people were seeing angels, they could be seeing fairies too. That's just how they've decided to materialize in front of them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wow. So I hate to get political, but it sounds like they maybe have revealed themselves to you and brought you in.
Mm-hmm.
And do you think they have an agenda as far as, hey, we want to, ensure peace. So this is what we would like you to do. Just, try and help keep us safe. Or, hey, tell humans that we're not, out to get them, that we just want them to not destroy us. Is there any sort of message or, anything like that where they're trying to communicate with us through you? Is there any sort of MO?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, there's really, like, they are, at this point, excuse me, very self-sufficient. So they don't really need anything from us at this point. Although, so there's like no reason to go back and forth very often, other than curiosity, other than like as a society. And again, there's no hierarchy in the way that we have built systems here. They sort of are above that. So if everyone is sort of self-governing, so if one fairy decides to transcend into our realm, or I guess descend, to our realm, then it's from their own wants and needs.
Okay, interesting. So there's no overarching, extending an olive branch to wage peace or anything like that. That's not really necessary, and they don't operate within some sort of bloated governmental system. Yeah, and I can see that. Man, if I were one of them, I'd have to imagine I'd still be a little. I don't know how they worry, but I'd be worried of, maybe people on the other side being jealous of that, or disliking anything that is different, even though it sounds a heck of a lot better.
Yes. I mean, I would say, like, yes, like they, if of the beings that I've met, mostly Tinks. Tinks are fairies with wings, and then there are pixies. Most of the pixies are like that's what my kind has sort of been calling them. Most of them don't actually have wings. Yeah, it's interesting. It's like they're the same being, but they don't fly, or they choose not to fly. So most of the Tinks that I met, they were all just telling me that like they are more peaceful, like they would like peace. They're very scared of our mentality of war and our mentality of I am better than you, so I'm taking this from you, anything like that. So I guess, yes, politically speaking, most of the Tinks I met would probably lean towards a little bit more liberals. They don't like words like fight, warrior. It's just not in their vocabulary.
This really sounds like a utopia, and it's so impossible for utopia to be achieved on Earth with humans. But it sounds like these fairy folk have achieved a sense of utopia.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say. I think suffering is. I think it's a sort of a human flaw. I think.
Yeah. We choose our own suffering. Well, when you said that the fairies descend to our realm for fun, it reminded me of being a kid, and you get together with your friends, and you have that one house in your neighborhood that everyone says is haunted or is weird, and you get together and you're like, I dare you to ring the doorbell. Like it kind of sounds like that's what fairies are doing with us.
It is, and they like because we've been corresponding with them for years, and what is happening in our planet and our realm, they laugh at a lot of the things that we consider problems. Like they will make fun of us. Like they're roasty kind of like, or the few that the ones that I'm closest with, like they're very like roasty. Like they're like, ha ha ha, like you're so silly, but it's like out of love, It's difficult to explain. It's like, so when people say that pixies and tinks are like mischievous, right? It's because they are in a sense. I think that the representation of them in media being like mischievous, I would say that it's sort of true, but I don't ever think that it is ill-willed, because they don't know what ill will is, basically.
Right, they don't know. Wow.
Yeah, we're running into a lot of kind of gaps in reality, in that like we don't really have terms, it seems, to describe what they do and feel. So we're using kind of our archaic human vocabulary to describe them, and it's an interesting challenge, it seems.
Yes.
I would love to get roasted by a fairy, honestly. Like, I would love to have something like that make fun of me in a very loving way. So earlier in the show, I talked about my mom and me throwing strawberries and rum out into the yard to feed the fairies, and we do this at like midnight, 1 a.m., and we go out in the yard and do that. Was that pointless, or is that cool? Like, did they like that? They like stuff like that. Sometimes people will leave gifts for them, or they'll like leave little trinkets out for the fairies to take. Like, is that something that you've seen be successful?
Yeah, I mean, they love trinkets. They love like earth trinkets. They don't eat really. They mostly, I guess it's hard to explain. Like they recycle their energy. So like, man, it would sort of be like when I speak to you, I'm giving you a certain amount of my energy, and they would take that energy and then use that as their energy source. So they mostly get their energy sources from each other, which is why they're so protective of each other, because that's their source of energy. So
if one dies, for instance, that is really a shock to all of them, because it's really the survival of all of them if one goes down.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. I think that might be sort of their philosophy of threats, and they can eat things. It's mostly just like they'll eat them, and then but they can't poop, right? So like they'll usually just like cough them back up.
So they'll eat more out of curiosity than anything, or just enjoyment of the experience rather than fuel or sustenance.
Right. Yeah. And they love, and yeah, like, yes, I would say there is a drinking problem. They
I was gonna say, well, we kept them very hydrated at our house. We gave them a lot of booze.
Yeah, they do love to party. So, their big thing though is like cheeses and creams, intoxicate them in the same way that like mushrooms would intoxicate us. Like it, sure. It takes them for some reason, like different creams, and like milks and cheeses, for whatever reason, intoxicate them.
Big on the dairy.
Yeah, I don't know what that is. I mean, it comes from cows. It comes from, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah,
know.
I mean, those are just more things to research. I know you've been doing this for 5 years. I mean, that's a long time, but when you're dealing with a civilization that is, I suppose, been around since the dawn of time, that's like a drop in the bucket.
Yeah, yeah. And they were sort of existing on this plane for a good long while. But there were too many threats in this realm. So it's sort of why they chose to flee.
Yeah.
Which
Well,
makes sense.
that's smart. That's smart. It ensures their survival, which is huge.
Yeah, it does seem. You have. You've had some time, but to get as granular as, what if different animal dairy gives them different kind of highs. If a goat is one kind of high and a cow's milk and cheese is another. I mean, that's pretty extensive research, I would think.
Yeah. Again, it's just something that I know, but I guess I never really thought to explore why or.
I guess you don't really have to. I mean, when you're in the fairy realm, there's really no need to pursue anything other than just being in the moment, because that's what they're doing. They're not. There's really nothing to study in terms of war or hierarchies or society or anything like that. So you're kind of just in party mode.
Yeah. And there's there's not really, they don't really have like sex organs in the same way that we have sex organs. So they're really not reproducing. Their like souls are immortal. So it's just like they are growing and changing as souls, and they can, I mean, as you transcend, depending on how long the soul has sort of been in that realm for, it transcends in different ways, but and it can take different forms, but they don't really breed. I don't know how. I don't know how they keep. I think it's something to do with like the splitting of their souls. So when their souls are split, then it can create more fairies. But yeah, there's no reproducing. There's no like, which is, again, it's something that they laugh and joke about.
Yeah,
like the idea that we're so obsessed with sex and creating more human beings, they think is really funny.
Yeah. I mean, and I know that's something that you would just kind of know. I know that's not your area of expertise, but that is fascinating on our end to learn that their priorities are just so much different than ours.
Yeah. They would make fun of you if you really wanted to get roasted. I mean, you just have to think about sex or something, because again, they're clairsentient. So like if a fear pops up for you, if a moment of worry or anxiety pops up for you and something that they think is funny, they'll make fun of you. Or like if you think about sex or something, they'll make fun of you. Like they're clairsentient, so they pick up on your energy like that.
They just know.
Yeah. It's really funny.
Wow, I would be terrified to think about anything,
Yeah, I think that's a pretty efficient way of making folks honest and transparent from the get-go if they already know exactly what you're thinking and feeling. You're certainly not able to hide anything, and I think that could go a long way. I'd be interested to try that out here in our realm.
Yeah, I mean, I could see how someone would easily be threatened or feel insecure if you had a being like a fairy that not read minds, but basically read minds and read our emotions and just see through us. And of course, they would feel threatened in that way. So I think it was smart for them to kind of go to this other realm. But, it would be nice to have peace. So I'm very glad that there are fairies that are trying to come over here. And especially with you being a proxy or a nice representative of human culture, that the work you're doing is very valuable.
Thank you.
Yeah. But why don't we take a quick break and we'll come back with Dr. Elizabeth talking all about fairies. back from a break, and we're finishing up our wonderful interview with the effervescent Dr. Elizabeth Torreseva. I want to say thank you for coming on the show. I love your personality. I'm so glad we finally got to meet after all these years. And, I value your work. I know Leo does. And I'm very happy that we were able to bring the world of fairies closer to other people's reality.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a pleasure for me, honestly. I mean, I just feel lucky. I feel lucky to be doing the work that I do. I feel grateful that I have mentors in my life that are kind enough to teach me everything they know, and it's sort of this wonderful thing. I mean, I feel very lucky.
Yeah, I think we're really fortunate here on Real True Facts to, get to the bottom of things. But now we know you shouldn't just bottle, you see something interesting or weird, you shouldn't just bottle it up and, put it in your closet or on your desk. And I think that's what one of my big takeaways, honestly, is, hey, there are, other peaceful beings, not just this world, but in other realms. So, let it do its thing.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think the bottling of fairies is, I think, one of the biggest tragedies of the work that I do. And I mean, it's really sad. It's really sad because like I was saying earlier, when they lose one of their own, it's some of the saddest things that can happen. And again, when they, as a society, sort of when they experience great trauma, since they're all connected, sharing one energy, they all feel trauma together. Yeah. And basically what happens when they experience great trauma is a soul rupture. So when they all experience a soul rupture at the same time, it's quite a thing to see, because I don't see how any human being could see a soul rupture and not cry themselves. I mean, it's one of the most powerfully energetic experiences that I've ever gone through. But basically what happens after the soul rupture is that a rebirth is created. So, oh yeah. Oh, that's, oh my gosh.
You're taking me to the edge of my emotions, and then
so that's how more are created. Wow.
Yeah. They recycle the energy, but wow, yeah. It's so fascinating. I mean, I would just be beside myself. So it's like the beauty in tragedy, but obviously, you don't want to take a fairy, you don't want to bottle it up, you don't want to remove that energy from their life source, because it's so tragic. So that's something that you shouldn't do. But we always like to ask on the show, what do you do if you encounter a fairy? If you're just a regular person and you encounter a fairy, what are some things you should do?
Party. They love to party. Just ask questions. Give your energy as fully as you can, because that's what they feed off of. Like I was saying, you can't hide anything, right? Like that. Give love as strongly as you can, because I think the more that we're able to show and give love to these beautiful, beautiful creatures, the more they will continue to come and be part of our world, and the more that we can be part of their world. I want more of an open communication between our realms. I want more entrances around the world to open up, and that can only be possible if we continue to show love and support and positive energy instead of any type of fear or threat or hatred. Just love things that are different from you. you know,
Yeah.
love and appreciate the fact that there are differences in this world and we all have room to exist.
Beautifully said.
Thank you.
Dr. Elizabeth Torreseva, her book, How to Communicate with Fairies, is out now. Dr. Elizabeth, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. It's been such a pleasure.
All right. Leo.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, it's great to end another interview on an up note. You know,
I love that. I love it. Sometimes things get scary and they get a little iffy, but I always love it.
Yeah, especially when when our advice, if we experience an encounter or find ourselves in an encounter, is to have fun, is to part. I mean, I don't think it can get more positive than that.
Yeah,
So,
just party.
yeah.
I mean, and I think like, is it really that simple? But yeah, I guess it can be.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So speaking of parties, do we? What do we have for our listener mail this week?
Yeah, we have a question today. We've got our trusty mailbag here. The question today comes from Mr. Creek Nelson of Franklin, Tennessee. He asks, why do Ouija boards use a planchette? I guess I should ask, do you know what a planchette is?
Well, there aren't a lot of parts to a Ouija board. There's
You got the board.
yeah. So my deductive reasoning and etymology from former Latin lessons would make me think that it's a little thing you hold on to.
Yeah, that little thingy with I guess there's a needle in it and the see-through part so you can see the letters. So that's the planchette. So
yeah,
no.
And I mean that's a good question because why would we need this little physical object for a Ouija board to be led around? But I think it's we need some sort of physical apparatus to channel the energy. If we just had a board and ourselves, that's not quite a fine enough tip of an instrument.
Yeah,
That's my.
I think that's right. I think you have like, you have like amulets and you have talismans and things like that, and you put the energy and you put the intent into it. And I guess you need a vessel, right? Like if you're going to house the spirit world or talk to the spirit world, you need a vessel. So I guess that would be the answer.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm
know.
playing with the Ouija board and you know what? I can't find the planchette. It's fine if the spirit just talks through me. I think it's a good buffer too, right?
Yeah. So if you're going to make a phone call, you need your phone. You can't just yell out the window. You can only go so far. So it's like, if the spirit world's going to make a phone call, they need their little planchette.
Their apparatus.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's just, I guess, consider it like a ghost phone or something.
Sure, it's a tool.
Yeah. But thank you, Mr. Nelson. Excellent question. Listeners, if you have questions of your own, you can reach out to us and email us at mail@realtruefactspodcast.com. You can also follow us on Instagram at RealTrueFactsGram. So you can always comment on our things there or answer any questions that we may post on our stories, and send us a DM as well. And any questions you have, if we like it, we'll read it on there and answer it to the best of our ability.
Yeah, so be sure to email us, and you can subscribe and listen on just about every platform out there: Apple, Google, Spotify. We're on the Amazon. I think Amazon owns Audible now, and we may or may not be on there. It takes a little time for the process, but yeah, just about any platform that exists we're on, and if you use one that we're not currently on, let us know.
Yes, we are everywhere. So all you have to do is wish and dream, and you'll find us. But yes, that email address again is mail@realtruefactspodcast. If you don't know where to listen to the show, you can always type in realtruefactspodcast.com. You can find us there, and we'll have a whole lot more content for you there. Also, thank you, PodMoth Media. Be sure to check them out on Instagram at PodMoth. They've got a lot of cool shows there, and you'll be able to see some more of our content on there too. So that is it for us today. Thank you again to our guests, obviously Dr. Seymour from the Science Bunker and Dr. Elizabeth Torres-Seva. Be sure to check out her book. But that'll be it for us today. We will see you next time on Real True Facts. And remember, dear listeners, keep questioning your world, because just because you hear about it or read about it doesn't mean it's true. We'll see you next time.
PodMoth.